Hey there, welcome to the UkeStuff channel and welcome to this full UKGuide review of this instrument. This is the CloudMusic Ukulele Kids Club Soprano Ukulele. The actual number in there says something like TT22S, TT22S. And this one I purchased from Goodwill, found it used on Goodwill, but used with tags, so I'm not sure it was ever played. And these actually sell for around $90, but it's a really interesting concept. When you buy one of these from CloudMusic, they also give one to Ukulele Kids Club that will be given away to a child in a hospital or to a music therapist and to help people with healing. And if you want to know more about the Ukulele Kids Club, you can certainly look them up online and find out more about their organization. There's a number of ways you can donate. One for sure is buying an instrument and then giving one at the same time. There are other ways to give too. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at this instrument first for some just general categories that I look at with all instruments. Then I'll go over the specifications. Then I will give it a summary statement and a UkeGuide rating out of 5 possible ukuleles. If that's too much for you, there are a couple other options. There is a 1-minute review where I cover 3 positives and 3 negatives of this instrument. There's also a summary of this entire thing on my website / blog at UkeStuff.info. If you look at the UkeGuide, you can find a single-page summary of this instrument that is done much like the Energy Guide here in the US when you buy a new appliance. Condenses everything to a single page if you want to do that. Also, if you want to support the work on this channel, there are really 3 things you can do. First of all, you can like the video. Second, you can subscribe to the channel. And third, you can always buy me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/UkeStuff to say thank you for making this content. I also have a few things available for purchase, including a book of chord melody arrangements for GCA and DGBE ukulele for Christmas songs, and also a book of hymn arrangements in chord melody for GCA and DGBE available on that page. Also, you can find it at Amazon in print and in iBooks or Apple Books as well. So let's get into this instrument with the general categories that we look at. First of all, price. If you do the math, if you're buying 2 ukuleles, you're paying $45 for this instrument, which is not bad for an entry level instrument, and you do get a very light gig bag. You might want to get a better gig bag than that, and it doesn't say anything special on it, just has the CloudMusic logo. But you do get a couple of things here. You do get a slotted bridge, which is going to make it a little bit easier to change, and you do get the Aquila Kids strings, which I like to teach with. This is how I teach. I don't use stickers. I know there are people who use stickers. Usually time is of the essence for them, and they only have kids for 15 minutes or so, and they need to get them going, so a sticker works great. I have a much longer approach, and this solves problems too for me as a teacher, but does not require me to use stickers. The other thing that this instrument has, other than side position markers, which is important, is it also has a bound fretboard. Now, what's interesting about that is there are some spots where there are some sharp fret ends that have to be dealt with. That shouldn't happen with a bound fretboard, so my message to CloudMusic, not Ukulele Kids Club, because that's just where they're sourcing these, my message to CloudMusic is talk to your producer of these instruments, because when you have a bound fretboard, there should be no need for that metal to go all the way into the binding. That should be cut before the binding on your fretboard, in my thought. So the fret should end and then the binding, particularly on an instrument like this where they're not like rounded edges or anything like that. So the price is pretty good. The value is slightly above what you would normally get because the instrument itself is pretty good overall. In fact, I've already covered most of the gripes I have with the instrument, which are really minor. Of course, it's made in China. Nothing wrong with that. A huge percentage of the ukes today are. The build quality, it looks pretty good overall. As I look across it, even as a secondhand instrument, it looks like it's finished pretty well. There's nothing fancy going on with the binding there. It's just the top glued on. You can see the laminate in there. They've done a good job of staining the laminate in the sound hole. And the fretboard overall looks to be in pretty good condition. as does the bridge. Maybe the bridge could use some oil. Looks to be walnut, so this one could have been made in that period of time where ukulele manufacturers were really stepping away from rosewood and other fretboards due to restrictions on the import of exotic hardwoods. That's no longer a case, but it was for a while. And so yeah, it looks like it's pretty well made. The tuners work great, even though they're a little crooked. Small little thing there. And quite honestly, on a beginning instrument, you might not worry about it, but it still needs to be mentioned. But really, let's take a look at the inside of the instrument and see what's happening there. Okay, so I use an endoscope to take a look inside of the ukulele. I call this like the internal Uke Cam. Nothing special, it's just an endoscope that we're just looking in the back. And you can see that it's built in a traditional way. The laminate looks to be pretty decent laminate. Pointing up, you can see the bridge support plate has a little bit of extra glue and that little extra thing. I'm not sure what that is. It's like almost like 2 layers. Maybe it's just a notched extra piece of wood that's being used for the support plate. It does have a tail block, so you could attach a strap to this instrument, which could be important in music therapy, which is good to know. And there were no, a lot of times they'll use screws to mount the bridge plate temporarily to know where to put it. Doesn't look like there any sort of a screw being used as a pin there to hold it in place while it dries. And not much glue mess, pretty decent laminate quality, which is going to come through in the sound here. Just after playing it, you'll see that. Well, let's take a look at the upper bout. Now, the upper bout can always be a little tricky to see on a soprano, so we're just kind of rotating around. You can see that it's pretty cleanly built. There's a cross support there. I've been looking for one of those, and there wasn't any to be seen on the lower bout, but there is a horizontal support, no vertical support on the laminate. Probably doesn't need it. There's your neck block, and there's your kerfing, notch kerfing as you can see it. So in general, pretty clean, standard, traditional build for a laminate instrument. And that's our quick look at the inside of the CloudMusic. This will be the Ukulele Kids Club version. It's labeled as a TT22S. So in terms of build quality, it looks pretty good, and that's going to come out in the sound here, I think, in just a second. The appearance is very plain. You do have an interesting branding choice there, but I don't find that horrible. It's hidden enough that it doesn't shut out to me, and that does probably need to go somewhere because it's not on the headstock, because they are promoting for the Ukulele Kids Club up there with that sticker on the top. So other than that, other than the sticker and that little bit of engraving down there and a little bit of an engraved rosette, it's pretty plain. It's a pretty large bridge, but that doesn't hurt anything. Maybe aesthetically that could be smaller, but it works. It works, and it's plain but simple, kind of a more traditional mahogany color. Yeah, it's not bad at all for a starter instrument or for sort of a more classically designed instrument. In terms of availability, I think you can buy these right now from cloud-music.us, where you'd buy the first one for $89.99 and the second would be sent to Ukulele Kids Club. Now, in terms of playability, this one has some really good things going for it. Let's go for the negatives first. The only negatives is it is, again, a really thick neck and a 35 millimeter nut, which does not bother me. I'm used to 35 millimeter nuts. I know some people want larger nuts, but just because you have a large nut on your ukulele does not mean that you have more string spacing. That has to be thought of too. So that all said, it's a thick neck, and that could be shallower. So there's the negative in playability. Also, if you want to talk about some sharp fret ends, which can be quickly solved with some sandpaper or a sanding block. That can be solved very quickly without even a fret file. You can take care of edges like that and not even harm the fretboard, particularly on a less expensive ukulele. But the setup, the action is incredibly low here, making it super easy to play chords. And that is essential when you're talking about a kid that perhaps is laying in a hospital bed. That part of the reason why Ukulele Kids Club exists is because the founder a kid wanted to play guitar. There just wasn't the room for a guitar, but there is a room for an ukulele. So with nice low action, you can play all these first position chords on the instrument with hardly any pressure whatsoever. That is a huge, 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 huge win, and that's why this one gets a giant upgrade on the terms of playability for me, especially considering where it's going. I also, again, like the Aquila Kid strings, because then you can say, do you see the blue string? Go to the third box on the blue string. If you can, use your ring finger and just play all 4 strings. And you got your C chord. Real easy way to teach without dots. Now, could you put dots on here? Sure. If you're into dots, go ahead and put dots on there. But that's really, really good. So playability, very good. Sound quality actually is really pretty good. You want a soprano to be loud, punchy, and in your face, and you know what? That's what you've got here. Just playing around with You Are My Sunshine a little bit. Its sound is really pretty good. Is it a solid wood ukulele? No. But it's a laminate ukulele that sounds good. It's really a pretty balanced sound. It really is pretty balanced. The volume is louder than usual, I would say. The tone is more balanced. A lot of times you'll get a laminate and it sounds tubby or it won't project at all. This is better than that. It's balanced and I like it. So it's easy to play and it sounds good and it's going to a kid. I mean, initially, that's the idea, that these would be going to a kid in a hospital bed or a music therapist or a music therapist working with a kid. It's all a win-win with that. So that's all, I think, very, very good. Now, one of the things I do on these videos is I let you see what I'm hearing by playing the ukulele into an app that is called Tonal Energy Tuner. And what Tonal Energy Tuner allows me to do is to let you see what I'm hearing, lets you see the harmonic series. So what I'm going to do is pull that up, and I'm going to play the C chord into it a few times, and you can see what's happening with the sound. Here we go. Now, if you've watched a number of these reviews, there are times that you only see the bottom end move or the top end moves and nothing else happens. That's a full spectrum, and the sound is actually lasting longer for me than you're seeing with that. And there's also some overtones. That G an octave up is ringing a lot on this instrument. So it doesn't surprise me. Quality laminate was used. Traditional construction, playable. It's a real winner so far. So let's get into the specifications. It is a soprano ukulele. It is 13.5625 inches in scale length. So if you go from the nut to the saddle, it's just over 13.5 inches. There are 15 frets with 12 to the body. It does have side position markers with a double one at the 12th, which is good. It's a traditional double bout with laminate mahogany top, back, and sides. The fretboard appears to be walnut and is not a radius fretboard. The bridge is a slotted bridge that also appears to be walnut. The nut and saddle appear to be plastic, not bone. And let's see, the saddle is not compensated. It's just a flat saddle. The finish is a satin, so it's not gloss. The overall length is 20.75 inches with that slightly different headstock. And it's nice to see a different shaped headstock because you're going to see, sort of the imitation of the Martin crown. And the Martin crown is probably an imitation of something else at some point. But CloudMusic, well, why not make your headstock look like a cloud. That's pretty good. And the weight is 14.4 ounces, so it's nice and light. It would probably be even less without this little Aquila Super Nile Gut tag. And these are not Super Nile Guts. These are the kid strings, which are a colored version of the Super Nile Guts. By the way, they will fit all the way up to a tenor ukulele. So you can use them soprano through tenor. And yes, I do use these with my school. The tuners are kind of interesting. They're almost overkill for this application. For those of you that hate ears on a soprano, please remember the intent of this instrument. It is for a kid potentially in a hospital bed using this instrument. So even if you hate ear tuners all the time, remember facility and ease rather than messing around with a friction tuner is essential here. So they work great. There's nothing wrong with them. They are not labeled. They work great. It's just almost too much. An open geared tuner would have been fine too, but hey, that's what is included. Now, let's go over the next part, which is amazing. The action at the first fret is only 0.3 millimeters. I look for around 0.5 at the highest, so that is excellent. And the action at the 12th fret is 2.48 millimeters, which is excellent. Ideal is 2.65 or just slightly lower, unless you want really low action or you want higher action for picking. So at just under 2.5, that's amazing. So this is set up impeccably. Love it, and I would hope that they're doing the same for every one of these that they're shipping out. The nut width is just shorter than 35 millimeters, so it's 34.47 millimeters. The space between strings, the first fret is 9 millimeters, so it's 28.84 millimeters from G to A at the first fret. I always measure at the first fret for those measurements. And then the depth of the neck, and this is really the only negative of this whole instrument, is at the third fret, going from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck with low action, is 21.08 millimeter, and that's pretty round and chunky. So if I was to give, again, CloudMusic any feedback, two things: make sure that those frets aren't sticking into your bound fretboard. When you put an extra layer of wood or material on the side of your fretboard, let that be functional in keeping your frets from actually reaching out, and then make the necks a little thinner. That's especially first 5 frets. If you can't do so lower, narrow that out a little bit, and that goes to all manufacturers of Chinese-made instruments. It's time to fix that in the industry, and yes, you could. So that is the list of specifications. Let's summarize the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating. So the Ukulele Kids Club, they for a number of years have put ukuleles into the hands of kids in hospitals and to music therapists and to their patients to help them with the wonderful healing aspects of music, sometimes even just the distractions of music for some time. It's 2024, and the UKC says that they've given over 15,000 ukuleles away. I was able to buy this from Goodwill. I saw it on Goodwill, put in a bid, and won it. I don't remember how much I paid for it. It's been a long time. This has been in my box of 2 review instruments for some time. However, pulling it out really for the first time over the last 2 weeks and working with it has really opened my eyes to this instrument, and I'm really impressed. I would not hesitate for a second to recommend this as a starter instrument for anyone. I can see how the entry point could be negative for you, which it's about $90 for one of these, but it's really not. When you buy this one for $45, you're giving one away to somebody else, a kid or a music therapist or one of their patients, at that same price. So it's buy one, give one, which is a really cool idea. It plays great with low action, has good sound, and I love the Aquila Kid strings as a choice. That's excellent. I would recommend a different gig bag, particularly, for anybody, really. A thicker gig bag would be nice. If CloudMusic could do that, because they also sell a lot of gig bags and things, that would also be a nice addition to this. But recommended as a gift or camping ukulele, definitely. And the idea, again, of BOGO is really good. So what rating does it get? Well, my actual rating is a 4.5 out of 5. Yes, it has a couple issues. Thick neck and some frets that extend too far. Could use a better gig bag. But beyond that, it's a winner just in and of itself. Probably not worth $90 by itself, but it's not by itself. You're also giving one away. And that aspect of giving one away probably would push us to a 5 for me if you really put me on the spot. But in terms of the instrument itself, it's a 4.5, which is really quite a good rating as well. So thank you for joining me for this review. I hope you're having a great day. Please consider supporting the Ukulele Kids Club in any possible way. And I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.